My name is Aria Middleton. I'm 32 years old. And before you decide what kind of woman I am, before you picture me as cold, dramatic, or vindictive, understand this. I didn't wake up one day and choose a war with my family. They trained me for it. They trained me in the way you train a person to accept scraps without noticing they're starving, with little jokes, little exclusions, little moments that could be explained away if you didn't want to see the pattern. And I didn't want to see it. Not until the day I found out I wasn't invited to my niece's birthday. Again. It was a Tuesday night when it happened, the kind of Tuesday that's supposed to be quiet. I was curled on my couch in my apartment, laptop open, half watching a show I wasn't really paying attention to. My boyfriend Ethan was in my kitchen making tea, like it was a small ritual that could keep the world gentle. Here, he said, handing me a mug. His eyes stayed on my face like he was always checking for storm clouds. I smiled because that's what I do. I'm good at smiling. I've had years of practice. Then my phone buzzed. A Facebook notification. And in 1 second, my living room disappeared. Because on my screen was a video posted by my sister-in-law, Rachel. Bright balloons, a bounce house in the backyard, a table overloaded with presents, a crowd, laughter, family. My family. Everyone was there, except me. I stared at it like it had to be a mistake. Like if I refreshed enough times, the universe would correct itself. But the comments made it real. Happy 10th, Sophia. Look at that cake. Such a beautiful party. A party for Sophia, my niece, 10 years old. The kid who used to grab my hand so tight in parking lots like she was afraid the world would take me away. I scrolled through my messages, checked my texts, checked my missed calls. Nothing. No invitation. No, hey, we're doing something small. Not even a fake, sorry, we forgot. My throat tightened in that familiar way, like my body recognized something my mind was still trying to deny. Ethan sat beside me. What is it? I didn't answer right away. I watched the video again. Kevin's laugh was in the background. My brother's laugh, loose and loud, the laugh he gets when he's been drinking and he's surrounded by people who will never make him feel guilty. He looked happy. In a house I had been paying for. I didn't realize I'd stood up until Ethan's hand touched my wrist gently. Aria. I forced my voice to work. It's Sophia's birthday party. His brow furrowed. Today? I nodded. And you weren't there? I shook my head. Ethan didn't say the obvious question. Were you invited? Because my face already answered it. I picked up my phone and called Rachel. She answered on the third ring, her voice bright, like she'd been waiting for applause. Aria, hey, what's up? I kept my tone smooth because I've learned that if you sound hurt, they call you sensitive. If you sound angry, they call you crazy. So I aimed for neutral, professional, polite. I just saw the party on Facebook, I said. Looks like it's big. A pause. A tiny pause, but I heard the calculation in it. The quick pivot. The mental search for the best lie. Oh my God, Rachel said, too loudly, too sweetly. I'm so sorry. It was just limited space. Limited space, I repeated, staring at the bounce house on my screen. Rachel, you have a bounce house. There are like 30 people there. It just worked out this way, she said, sharper now. Don't make it a thing. Don't make it a thing. The phrase hit me like a slap because it wasn't new. It was a family motto. The blanket they threw over every bruise. Put Kevin on, I said. What? Put him on. Muffled voices, a laugh, someone shouting in the background. Then Kevin came on the line and his voice was slightly slurred, warm with alcohol and confidence. Aria, hey sis, great party, right? You should see Sophia, she's loving it. My fingers clenched around the phone. Why wasn't I invited? What? He said like he couldn't hear me, like my question was inconvenient background noise. Sophia's birthday, why wasn't I invited? Another pause, then a chuckle, not kind, not nervous, just casual. Oh, Kevin said. Well, you know, Rachel had to make tough choices. I'm her aunt, I said. I'm your sister. Yeah, he said, and I heard the shift in him, like the alcohol loosened the part of him that usually stayed hidden. But let's be honest here. You're not really family in the way that matters for stuff like this. Something cold settled in my chest, heavy and still. What does that mean? I asked, even though I already knew. Because sometimes you need to make them say the ugly part out loud so you can stop blaming yourself for hearing it. It means, Kevin said, you're more like a resource, a wallet. Ethan's hand tightened on my wrist. I hadn't realized I'd started shaking. A wallet, I repeated. My voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. You help out when we need it, Kevin continued, like he was explaining a simple business arrangement. But you're not really part of the day-to-day family stuff. I swallowed. The taste of metal rose in my mouth. Kevin, I said quietly, I've been paying your mortgage for 18 months. And we appreciate that, he said, immediately defensive, like gratitude was a shield he could hide behind. But that doesn't mean you get a say in family events. I couldn't speak. The humiliation was so clean, so precise, it felt surgical. Look, he added, don't take it personally. You help financially. We keep the family going. It works. And then he hung up, just like that, as if he'd closed a deal. I stood there with the phone pressed to my ear, listening to the deadline. My apartment was too quiet now. Even the city noise outside felt distant. Ethan's voice cut through softly. Aria, are you okay? I laughed once, one sharp sound that didn't match my face. He called me a wallet. Ethan's jaw flexed. After you've been paying his mortgage? I nodded. 18 months ago, Kevin had called me in a panic. His tech startup had collapsed. He was 35 with 2 kids and a wife who didn't work, and he sounded like a man realizing the world wasn't going to catch him. Aria, he'd said back then, voice shaking, I don't know what to do. The mortgage is $2,800 a month. I'm going to lose the house. I remember how fast my answer came. I'll help, I'd said immediately. I'll cover it until you get back on your feet. Because that's what I do. I fix, I rescue, I prove I'm worth keeping. I made $82,000 as a financial analyst. I told myself I could swing it if I cut back. So I did. Cheaper apartment. No eating out. No new clothes. Drove my 10-year-old car until it rattled like it was begging for mercy. $2,800. Direct deposit. Every month. Never late. At first, Kevin texted, Thanks, sis, you're saving us. Then the updates stopped. Then the text turned into demands. Can you send it early this month? Need it by the 3rd. Don't forget. Somewhere along the line, I stopped being a sister and became an automatic payment. My phone buzzed again. A text from Aunt Diane. Sorry you couldn't make it to the party. Sophia asked about you. My stomach turned. Sophia asked about me. They didn't invite me, but she noticed. I called Diane. She answered with that syrupy tone she used when she wanted to sound like the kind aunt in public. Aria, sweetheart, how are you? Why wasn't I invited? I asked. Oh, Diane said with a sigh that sounded practiced. Rachel had to keep the guest list manageable. There were 30 people there. Well, yes, she said, but close family. I'm his sister, I said. Silence. Then Diane's voice dropped, sharper. Aria, honestly, we're fine without you there. These events are about core family. You're busy with your own life anyway. We're fine without you. The same sentence Kevin's voice had carried, just wrapped in Diane's superiority. I pay Kevin's mortgage, I said quietly. And we appreciate that, she replied, as if appreciation was a substitute for respect. But that doesn't mean you need to be at every family gathering. I felt something inside me go still. When's the last time I was invited to anything? I asked. She didn't answer. I waited. She didn't answer because the truth was ugly, and they preferred ugly truths to stay unspoken. So I asked the question that finally mattered. If I stopped paying tomorrow, I said, would I suddenly be invited? Diane inhaled, offended. That's not fair. Answer the question. A beat. Your brother needs that money, she snapped. You can't just... So that's a no, I said, and my voice didn't shake this time. That was the difference. Something had changed. If that's how you feel, Diane, then you're right. I shouldn't come to family events. You're being dramatic. No, I whispered. I'm being clear. She hung up. I stood in the middle of my living room, phone in my hand, Ethan watching me like he was afraid I'd fall apart. And maybe a part of me did. But another part of me, the part that had been quietly collecting every slight, every exclusion, every don't make it a thing, finally stood up. I opened my banking app, found the recurring payment. $2,800, scheduled for the 1st of every month. My thumb hovered over it. Ethan's voice was soft behind me. You don't have to keep doing this. I stared at the screen, at the neat little transaction that had been draining my life while they celebrated in the house I funded. On my phone, another Facebook story auto-played. Sophia cutting the cake, Kevin laughing, Rachel smiling like everything was perfect. A perfect family. A family I paid for. A family that told me I wasn't family. I clicked the payment, canceled it. Then I texted Kevin one sentence. Effective immediately, I'm stopping the mortgage payments. You have 30 days to make other arrangements. And before fear could argue with me, before guilt could beg me to reconsider, I blocked his number. Blocked Rachel's. Blocked Diane's. I set my phone down and felt my heart hammering like it wanted to escape my ribs. Ethan stepped closer. Aria! I looked up at him. I wasn't family, I said. I was just a wallet. And for the first time in my life, I didn't say it like a victim. I said it like a verdict. Because this wallet was closed. The first night after I canceled the payment, I expected to feel guilt. I expected my stomach to twist, my hands to shake, my mind to replay Kevin's voice until it sounded reasonable. But instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Silence. Not the awkward, lonely kind. The kind that happens after you finally stop holding a door shut against someone who keeps trying to force it open. Ethan stayed over. He didn't crowd me with questions, didn't try to fix it with logic. He just existed beside me like a steady presence, making dinner, washing dishes, keeping the apartment from swallowing me whole. Around midnight, he asked quietly, "Do you want to talk about it?" I stared at the ceiling. If I talk about it, I'll start explaining. And if I start explaining, I'll end up apologizing, and I'm done apologizing for being used. He exhaled slow. Okay. That was it. No lecture, no pressure. I fell asleep for the first time in months without waking up in the middle of the night to check my bank balance. The next morning, I woke up and did something that felt almost sinful. I opened my banking app, and the number staring back at me looked wrong, because for 18 months, my account had been a revolving door. Paycheck in, Kevin's mortgage out, and whatever scraps were left became my groceries, my gas, my rent, my quiet, shrinking life. Now the recurring payment was gone, a clean, empty space where my sacrifice used to live. My chest tightened, not with regret, but with a kind of disbelief. Like I'd been underwater so long that breathing felt suspicious. At work, I tried to keep my face neutral. I sat at my desk, pulled up my spreadsheets, answered emails, nodded in meetings. I played the role of Aria Middleton, competent financial analyst, like it was a costume I could zip up. But my coworker Vanessa saw through it anyway. Vanessa had a gift for noticing what people hid. Maybe it was because she never hid anything herself. She wore her emotions like jewelry, bold, unapologetic. She leaned against my cubicle wall that afternoon and tilted her head. "You look lighter." I blinked. "Lighter? Like you dropped a bag you've been dragging for years." Her eyes narrowed. "Tell me you finally stopped paying for someone else's mess." I hesitated. Vanessa's expression softened. "You don't have to tell me details, but I know that look." I swallowed. I canceled it. A slow smile spread across her face, not gloating, not petty, proud. "Aria." She breathed it like a congratulations. "Good." My throat tightened again, because the word good felt unfamiliar when it was pointed at me. "I thought I'd feel horrible," I admitted. "And do you?" I paused. I scanned my body for the usual guilt symptoms, the nausea, the shame, the urge to backtrack. What I found was relief. "No," I said, almost surprised. "I feel free." Vanessa nodded like she'd been waiting for that exact sentence. Freedom feels weird when you've been trained to mistake self-sacrifice for love. That night, my phone stayed quiet. And that was the strange part. I knew Kevin wouldn't be okay with it. I knew Rachel would explode. I knew Diane would act like she was leading a moral crusade. But I also knew something else. They hadn't noticed yet. The payment wasn't due for 3 more weeks. Until then, they could still pretend the machine was running. I got through day 2, day 3, day 4 with no contact. It almost made me second-guess myself. Maybe they really were fine without me. Maybe they really didn't need my money. Maybe. On day 8, the first crack appeared. An unknown number called while I was heating leftovers in my microwave. I stared at the screen until it stopped. A voicemail popped up seconds later. I didn't even have to play it to know who it was. Rachel. I hit play anyway. "Aria, what the hell?" Her voice was sharp, panicked beneath the anger. "Kevin says you canceled the payment. You can't do that. You can't just do that. He's going to lose the house. This is insane." Delete. Another call came an hour later. Different number. "Aunt Diane." "Aria," she said, voice trembling with outrage. "This is cruel. Your brother is beside himself. Your mother would be ashamed." That one hit harder than I expected. Not because it was true, but because it was targeted. Because my mother had been dead for years, and Diane still knew how to use her like a knife. I deleted the voicemail anyway. Then came more. Work numbers. Friends' phones. Private numbers that showed up as no caller ID. Each time I blocked. Each time I deleted. The thing about being someone's wallet is this. You only matter when the money stops. On day 12, I got an email from Kevin. A long, rambling mess that tried every angle, like he was throwing darts in the dark and hoping something would stick. He started with nostalgia. He moved to guilt. He ended with rage. "I raised you after Mom died. I was there when Dad checked out. This is how you repay me? Rachel is having panic attacks. The kids are scared. Sophia cries every night. You're taking away their home. How can you be so selfish?" I read it twice, not because I believed it, but because part of me still did what it always did. searched for the place where I was wrong. Ethan found me at the kitchen table, my laptop open, my face stiff. He read over my shoulder silently. Then he sat down, slow and careful, like he was approaching a wounded animal. "He's blaming you for consequences," Ethan said finally. "He's blaming me for stopping his consequences," I corrected. My voice was tight. "He wants me to be the wall between him and reality." Ethan took my hand. "You don't have to be." I stared at Kevin's email again. Then I wrote back one line. "You told me I'm not family. I'm just a wallet. This wallet is closed." I hit send and felt my heart pound like I'd just jumped off a cliff. His response came fast, almost immediate. "I didn't mean it like that. I was drinking. You're being too sensitive." Sensitive. That word. It was the same word my mom used to sigh when I was a kid, and I'd point out that Kevin got away with things I never could. "Don't be so sensitive, Arya. He's your brother. Let it go." I stared at the email until the words blurred. Then I closed my laptop. I didn't respond. Because here was the truth they never wanted to say out loud. If someone doesn't mean it, they apologize for the harm. They don't accuse you of feeling it. The next day, they changed tactics. When private guilt didn't work, they went public. I didn't see it first. Vanessa did. She called me during lunch with her voice already heated. "Arya, tell me you're sitting down." "I'm at my desk." "Okay, then brace yourself." A pause. "Rachel posted about you." My stomach dropped. "Posted what?" Vanessa exhaled hard. "A whole thing. Public. Naming you." I went cold. My fingers moved before my mind caught up. I opened Facebook, an app I barely used anymore, and there it was. A post from Rachel, dripping with righteous victimhood. "Some people value money over family. My sister-in-law, Arya, has decided to stop helping my husband. Kevin is about to lose his house because Arya is bitter about not being invited to one party. This is what selfishness looks like." Comments poured in like a flood. "How horrible. Your poor kids. Family is everything. What kind of aunt does that?" Aunt Diane shared it with her own caption. Heartbroken. "Family should support family, not abandon them over hurt feelings." My hands shook so hard I almost dropped my phone. Ethan texted me from earlier that morning. He'd had a meeting across town. "How are you holding up?" I didn't answer him right away. I stared at the post, at the comments, at the way strangers swallowed their story like it was gospel. And then I did the thing they expected. I imagined defending myself, posting receipts, bank statements, screenshots of payments, a clean list of every $2,800 transfer. I imagined typing out the truth, that I'd paid for 18 months while they laughed at a party I wasn't invited to. I imagined finally screaming loud enough to be heard. But then I heard my mother's voice, soft and tired, like she used to sound late at night when she'd brush my hair back from my forehead. "The truth doesn't have to be loud, baby. It just has to be true." Vanessa said, "Do you want me to comment? I will. I will burn that post to the ground." I swallowed. "No." "No?" Vanessa sounded offended on my behalf. I stared at the screen, at the lies, at the way they painted me as the villain with such ease. "Let them have their narrative," I said quietly. Everyone who matters already knew I was invisible. Vanessa went silent for a beat. Then she said low and fierce, "Okay, but you're not invisible to me." I blinked hard because that almost made me cry. I didn't comment. I didn't defend myself. I just watched them build a story where my boundary was cruelty and their entitlement was survival. And deep down I knew it was about to get worse. Because the mortgage due date was coming. And when the bank didn't get its money, that's when the panic would stop being performative. That's when they'd stop trying to shame me and start trying to break me. That night, my phone rang 6 times from different unknown numbers. I didn't answer any of them. I put my phone face down on the table. Ethan sat across from me, his eyes steady. "They're going to escalate," he said. "I know." He reached for my hand again. "Do you want me to help you figure out a plan, like legal protection, harassment documentation?" I squeezed his fingers. "Not yet, because there was something I needed to do first. Not for them. For me." I opened a note on my phone and started writing down dates. Day 8, Rachel voicemail. Day 9, Diane voicemail. Day 12, Kevin email. Day 13, Facebook smear. Every contact attempt, every threat, every guilt trip. Evidence. Not because I wanted to sue. Because I wanted to stop gaslighting myself. I wanted a record that proved I wasn't imagining the pattern. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't too sensitive. I was finally seeing clearly. And clarity is dangerous to people who survive by keeping you confused. When I went to bed, I didn't sleep easily. But I didn't regret it either. Because for the first time in 18 months, I wasn't bracing for Kevin's next demand. I was bracing for my own next step. And I could feel it in my bones. This wasn't just about one birthday party. This was about what happens when a family realizes the person they've been bleeding dry finally learned how to say no. The thing about being painted as the villain is that it happens faster than you think. One day, you're the reliable one, the fixer, the quiet safety net everyone pretends not to see. The next day, you're the problem. I woke up the morning after Rachel's Facebook post with a strange, hollow calm. The kind that only comes when the worst thing you feared has already happened, and there's nothing left to brace for. My phone was heavy in my hand. Notifications stacked on top of each other like accusations. Missed calls, blocked numbers trying again. Message requests from people I hadn't spoken to in years. I didn't open any of them. I got dressed, I went to work, I made coffee like the world hadn't cracked open the night before. That terrified me more than the anger, because it meant I was adjusting. At 10:17 a.m., an email popped into my inbox with the subject line, "Urgent Legal Matter." My pulse kicked hard. I opened it. Law Offices of Harrison and Associates. Kevin was claiming I had made a binding verbal agreement to continue paying his mortgage, and that my sudden cancellation constituted financial harm. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was desperate. I forwarded the email to my personal account and called the number listed at the bottom. A receptionist answered briskly. I gave my name. There was a pause, papers shifting. "Yes," she said. "One moment." A man came on the line, voice smooth, practiced. "Ms. Middleton," he said, "your brother believes you made a verbal promise to cover his mortgage until he was employed again." "Did he tell you I already paid for 18 months?" I asked. Another pause. He mentioned assistance. "I didn't co-sign anything," I continued calmly. "No contract, no written agreement. I helped voluntarily. I stopped voluntarily." Silence stretched. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Do you have anything in writing that states the opposite?" "No," I said, because there was no agreement. More silence. "I'll relay your response," he said. The call ended. I sat back in my chair and felt something solid settle into place. They were out of options, so they were going to try intimidation. That afternoon, the Facebook comments doubled. Someone tagged me directly. "Is this true, Arya? How could you do this to family?" Another one. "You should be ashamed. Kids are involved." A woman I barely remembered from childhood church wrote, "Money isn't everything. Love is." I closed the app. Ethan texted, "Do you want me to come by tonight?" "Yes," I typed back, "please." When he arrived, I handed him my phone without a word. He scrolled, his jaw tightened. "They're rewriting reality," he said. "They've always done that," I replied. "This is just the first time I'm not playing along." That night, the calls became more frantic. Voicemails filled my inbox faster than I could delete them. Kevin's voice cracked in one. "Arya, the bank is calling nonstop. They're serious this time. Please, just pick up." Rachel sobbed in another. "Sophia doesn't understand why you're doing this. She keeps asking what she did wrong." That one almost broke me. Not because I believed it, but because I knew exactly what they were doing. They weren't asking for help anymore. They were aiming for pain. By day 23, a registered letter arrived at my apartment. I recognized Kevin's handwriting immediately. Slanted, rushed, uneven, like the thoughts inside his head. I didn't open it right away. I made dinner first, ate slowly. Let the moment exist without reacting to it. Then I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten plea. The ink pressed so hard into the paper it almost tore through. I was wrong. I said terrible things. Please don't let my mistakes cost us everything. Mom would want us to fix this. I folded the letter once, then again, and slid it into a drawer. Not trash, not forgiveness, just containment. Because apologies that arrive only after consequences are not always repentance. Sometimes they're strategy. Day 28. 2 days before the mortgage was due, my phone didn't stop vibrating. I stopped answering it entirely. At work, Vanessa leaned over my desk and lowered her voice. "You okay?" I nodded. As okay as someone can be when their family is trying to emotionally waterboard them. She snorted. "If you cave now, they'll learn it works." "I know." She studied my face. And I'm not caving. At 11:02 a.m. on day 30, an email landed in my inbox. Attached was a photo. A legal notice taped to Kevin's front door. Notice of default foreclosure proceedings to begin in 30 days. Below it, a single text message from an unknown number. Happy now? I stared at the image for a long time. At the door I'd paid for. At the paper announcing the collapse of a lie that had been propped up with my money. I thought about 18 months of sacrifices. Of holidays I wasn't invited to, of parties I funded but didn't attend, of being told I wasn't core family. Then I typed one word. Yes, and blocked the number. The world didn't end. The sky didn't fall. No lightning struck me down for refusing to save people who refused to see me. What happened instead was quieter. I exhaled. For the first time in a year and a half, the crisis wasn't mine. And I decided something else then, something small but powerful. I would give them exactly what they'd always given me. Silence. No responses, no explanations, no negotiations, no second chances disguised as guilt. The foreclosure notice gave them 30 days. I gave them none. And in that space, where my panic used to live, I started building a life that didn't require me to disappear for someone else to survive. The first thing I did with the extra $2,800 wasn't anything dramatic. I didn't book a vacation. I didn't buy designer clothes. I didn't even upgrade my phone. I just breathed. I paid my bills without rearranging numbers like a puzzle. I filled my gas tank without calculating how many days I could stretch it. I ordered groceries and didn't put things back on the shelf because they felt like luxuries. It felt illegal, like I was doing something wrong simply by not being desperate. 2 weeks after the foreclosure notice, the harassment slowed, not because they'd accepted reality, but because they were regrouping. And then they crossed the line I didn't know they were willing to cross. It was a Thursday evening. I'd just gotten home from work, kicked off my shoes, and was halfway through reheating leftovers when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost declined. Something, instinct maybe, made me answer. Hello? There was a pause. Then a small, shaky voice. Aunt Arya? My heart stopped. Sophia? I whispered. How did you... I took Mom's phone, she said quickly, like she was afraid someone would hear. She doesn't know. I sat down hard on the couch. Oh, honey, I said, my voice already breaking. Are you okay? There was a sniffle on the other end. Why won't you help my dad anymore? The question landed like a punch. Not because it was unfair, but because it wasn't hers to ask. Sophia, I said carefully, you didn't do anything wrong. None of this is your fault. But Mom says we're going to lose our house, she whispered. She says it's because you're mad about my birthday. I closed my eyes. Of course, that's what they told her. They couldn't own their choices, so they handed the burden to a 10-year-old. Did your mom tell you I've been paying your dad's mortgage for a year and a half? I asked gently. Silence. What's a mortgage? She finally asks. I swallowed. It's the money people pay every month for their house. Oh, I've been paying that money so you and Tyler could keep living there. You have? Her voice cracked. That's a lot, right? It is. Another pause. Dad says you're being mean. I forced my voice to stay soft. Your dad said something very hurtful to me. He told me I wasn't really family, that I was just money. A wallet? She asked quietly. My chest tightened. Yes. That's mean, she said immediately. No hesitation, no politics, just truth. It was, I agreed. So you stopped paying? Yes. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. I wanted you at my party, she said finally. I asked Mom where you were. She said you were busy. I felt something tear inside me. I wasn't busy, I said. I wasn't invited. That's not fair. No, I said softly. It isn't. I'm sorry, Aunt Arya, she whispered. I didn't know. Tears slid down my face before I could stop them. This isn't your fault, I said again, firmly this time. You didn't cause any of this. She sniffed. Can you still help my dad, even if he was mean? There it was, the question they'd planted, the one designed to make me choose between being right and being cruel. I took a breath. Sophia, I said, sometimes grown-ups have to face the consequences of their choices. That doesn't mean I don't love you. Okay, she said, small and sad. I love you. I love you too, I said, and meant it so deeply it hurt. The call disconnected. I sat there shaking, my phone still pressed to my ear, my heart racing with rage that had nowhere to go. 5 minutes later, my phone rang again. Same number. I answered without thinking. Rachel's voice exploded through the speaker. How dare you, she snapped. How dare you tell my daughter her father called you a wallet? I stood up, fury burning clean and sharp. How dare you put a 10-year-old in the middle of your financial mess, I said. You told her it was my fault she's losing her house. She wanted to talk to you. You used her, I shot back. You weaponized your child. It is your fault, Rachel screamed. You're destroying our family over one stupid party. It wasn't one party, I said, my voice steady now. It was every holiday, every gathering. Every time you needed money and forgot I existed the moment you didn't. We need that money, she cried. Kevin needs it. No, I said. You need to take responsibility. We have 2 weeks, she sobbed. 2 weeks before the bank takes the house. Then spend those 2 weeks figuring it out, I replied, instead of calling me. I hung up, blocked the number. My hands shook, not with doubt, but with the aftermath of holding my ground when every instinct screamed to give in. That night, Vanessa called. Arya, she said, breathless, you need to see this. She sent me a link, a GoFundMe page. Help save a family home. Rachel's name, Kevin's picture. a photo of the house. The description painted Kevin as a hardworking man who'd fallen on hard times, a family fighting to save the home where their children were born. Goal: $30,000. Raised so far, $425. I read the whole thing twice. There was no mention of me. No mention of 18 months of payments. No mention of $43,000 already given. Just tragedy, just need, just entitlement, Vanessa said quietly. They're asking strangers to save what you already paid for. I nodded. Of course they are. Are you going to comment? Tell the truth? I thought about it. About screenshots. About receipts. About finally correcting the record. Then I remembered Sophia's voice. And my mother's. No, I said. The truth doesn't need me to scream it. The GoFundMe crept upward slowly over the next few days. Church friends, distant relatives, well-meaning strangers. $5,000. $7,000. Nowhere near enough. And for the first time, that wasn't my problem. Because something had shifted. They weren't asking for help anymore. They were exposed. And exposure has a way of attracting attention from places you don't expect. I just didn't know yet who would be watching. 2 days before the foreclosure deadline, my phone buzzed with a notification I didn't expect. LinkedIn. I almost ignored it. LinkedIn messages were usually recruiters or spam pretending to be recruiters. But the name made me pause. Christine Torres. Torres was my father's last name. I opened the message. Hi, Arya. You don't know me, but I'm your dad's cousin. I live in Seattle. I've been hearing about the situation with Kevin through the family grapevine. I was hoping we could talk. I stared at the screen longer than I meant to. My dad never talked about his extended family. There had been a falling out years ago, something vague and ugly that no one ever explained. I had grown up assuming the silence meant distance. Not warning. I typed back, sure, when? We met the next afternoon at a quiet coffee shop halfway between my office and my apartment. Christine was in her mid-50s, dressed neatly, posture calm, eyes kind in a way that immediately disarmed me. She smiled when she saw me, not like someone assessing damage, but like someone relieved to finally sit down. Thank you for meeting me, she said. I know this is strange. A little, I admitted. I didn't even know you existed until yesterday. She nodded. That doesn't surprise me. We ordered coffee. She waited until the cups were on the table, steam rising between us, before she spoke again. I've heard the family version, she said carefully, but I wanted to hear yours. So I told her everything. The 18 months of payments, the birthday party, Kevin calling me a wallet, Diane's "we're fine without you," the smear campaign, Sophia's phone call. I didn't soften it. I didn't dramatize it. I just laid it out like facts on a table. Christine listened without interrupting, her face unreadable but attentive. When I finished, she let out a slow breath. That sounds exactly like Frank and Diane, she said. I blinked. My uncle and aunt? She nodded. They did something very similar to me 20 years ago. My stomach tightened. What happened? They borrowed money for a business venture, she said calmly. Promised to pay it back. When I finally asked for it after 2 years, they accused me of being greedy, of not supporting family. How much? I asked. $18,000, she said. Back then, that was my entire savings. Something settled inside me. Not relief. Validation. I never saw a cent, she continued, and I learned something important. What? People who use money as a substitute for accountability will always resent the person who stops paying. I swallowed. Do you think I did the wrong thing? Christine looked at me steadily. No. I think you stopped enabling people who confuse love with access. That sentence stayed with me. Then she asked the question I hadn't asked myself out loud. Do you want them to lose the house? I considered it honestly. I don't want Sophia and Tyler to suffer, I said. But Kevin and Rachel, they need to learn that people aren't ATMs. You can't treat someone like garbage and expect them to keep saving you. Christine nodded. That's fair. She smiled gently. For what it's worth, Arya, I'm proud of you. Setting boundaries in families like ours is rare. When we stood to leave, she hugged me, brief but sincere. If you need anything, she said, you're not alone. I drove home lighter than I had in weeks. The next day was the foreclosure deadline. At 3 p.m., to be exact. I didn't get any calls that morning. No texts. No voicemails. The GoFundMe sat at $7,800. Not enough. At 2:52 p.m., my doorbell rang. I knew who it was before I even looked. Through the peephole, I saw Aunt Diane. She looked smaller than I remembered. No makeup, hair pulled back carelessly, a cardigan wrinkled like she'd slept in it. I opened the door but didn't step aside. Arya, she said, voice breaking. Please, we need to talk. No, I replied. You need to talk. I don't. 5 minutes, she begged. 2. Right here, I said. her eyes filled with tears. The foreclosure is today. We're 8,000 short. I crossed my arms. You told me you were fine without me. I didn't mean it, she said quickly. Yes, you did. Are you really going to destroy his life over one comment? She cried. It wasn't one comment, I said. It was 18 months of being treated like an ATM while being excluded from everything. We thought you were busy. You thought I was convenient. She wiped her face. Please, I'll pay you back. I don't want your money, I said calmly. I want you to understand that people aren't wallets. Her expression hardened. So you're just going to let him lose everything? No, I said. You are. You spent a month harassing me instead of fixing your situation. At 3:15 p.m., my phone buzzed. Kevin's name, I answered. They took it, he sobbed. The house, it's gone. I said nothing. Aria, please, he begged. I'm your brother. You're the man who told me I wasn't family, I said quietly. This isn't my problem anymore. I hung up, blocked the number, and opened a bottle of wine without feeling guilty. 2 weeks later, Christine messaged me again. They're having a fresh start party at Rachel's parents' house this Saturday. Thought you should know. A party. Of course. Christine added one more thing. By the way, Kevin bought a Mustang a few months ago. Financed. Can't afford it. The repo company's been looking for it. My heart didn't race. I didn't smile. I just asked one question. What time is the party? Saturday, 2 p.m. At 2:47 p.m., a flatbed tow truck pulled onto the street. I watched from my car, parked down the block. Kevin's silver Mustang rolled onto the truck while guests filmed. Rachel cried, Diane screamed, and the illusion finally shattered in public. I didn't cause it. I just watched consequences arrive. I didn't stay to watch the repo truck pull away. I didn't need the full spectacle. The moment Kevin's silver Mustang started rolling up the flatbed, his hands useless at his sides, Rachel crying into her phone, Diane yelling at a man who had paperwork and zero sympathy, I felt something inside me loosen. Not joy. Not revenge. Release. I turned my key, pulled away quietly, and drove home. By the time I reached my apartment, my phone was buzzing. Vanessa, did you see Facebook? She asked without preamble. No, I said honestly. Your brother's fresh start party just got repossessed. I exhaled. So it happened. Oh, it happened, she said. Multiple angles. People were filming. Someone commented, wait, didn't he say he couldn't afford his mortgage? Another asked why he had a new car at all. I leaned against my kitchen counter, eyes closed. Rachel just posted asking for privacy, Vanessa continued, which of course made people dig more. Of course it did. By dinner, the narrative had started cracking. By midnight, it was fractured. Sunday morning, Christine texted me. New GoFundMe. Help Kevin get his car back. Wrongful repossession. Goal, $10,000 a day. Raised so far, $0. I didn't even open the link. I didn't need to. Because the comments, according to Vanessa, were brutal. Didn't you just lose your house? If Aria was paying your mortgage, where did that money go? Why does this family keep asking for handouts? The truth didn't come out because I exposed it. It came out because they couldn't keep their lies straight, and I stayed silent through all of it. I blocked Facebook again. I didn't need to watch the collapse. I'd already walked away from the wreckage. 3 weeks later, my life felt quieter. No unknown numbers, no desperate emails, no relatives showing up at my door with tears and ultimatums. I started therapy, not because I felt guilty, but because Vanessa gently suggested that maybe 18 months of living in crisis mode didn't disappear overnight. Dr. Palmer was in her 50s, calm, sharp-eyed, with zero patience for self-betrayal. So, she said during our third session, flipping through her notes, your family treated you like an ATM for a year and a half. When you stopped paying, they made you the villain. That about sums it up. And how does that make you feel? I thought about it. Not the way I was supposed to feel, but the truth. Free, I said. She smiled. Good. That means your nervous system finally believes you're safe. Work shifted too. Without the constant pressure of covering someone else's life, I could focus. I spoke up more in meetings, took on bigger projects. I stopped apologizing before I even opened my mouth. 2 months later, my manager called me into his office. Aria, he said, smiling, we'd like to promote you to senior analyst. The raise wasn't astronomical, but it was mine. Vanessa took me out for drinks that night and raised her glass. To boundaries, she said. To boundaries, I echoed. The knock on my door came on a Saturday morning. I checked the peephole and froze. Sophia. She stood there with a woman I didn't recognize, mid-30s, nervous posture, hands clasped. I opened the door slowly. Aunt Aria, Sophia beamed, throwing her arms around me before I could stop her. The woman cleared her throat. Hi, I'm Monica, Rachel's friend. Sophia asked me to bring her. She was very insistent. It's okay, I said gently. Come in. Monica stayed near the door while Sophia sat across from me, suddenly serious. I wanted to say I'm sorry, Sophia said, for being mean on the phone. You weren't mean, I said immediately. You were confused. That's different. She nodded, absorbing it. Monica told me what really happened, she continued. About you paying for our house, about Dad calling you a wallet. My chest tightened. Sophia, I know what boundaries are now, she interrupted proudly. They're when you decide what you will and won't accept. I blinked. That's exactly right. She smiled, relieved. Can I still see you sometimes? I chose my words carefully. I don't want to make things harder for you at home, but I'm here for you. That seemed to be enough. We went for ice cream down the street, talked about school, her drawings, the books she was reading. Before she left, she hugged me tight. Thank you for not giving up on me, she whispered. I never would, I said. After they left, I texted Rachel once. Sophia came by today. She's safe. If you want to talk about boundaries for future contact, I'm open. Her response came an hour later. Stay away from my daughter. I didn't reply. I forwarded the message to Monica with a simple note. Thank you for bringing her. 6 months passed, then a year. My life filled with people who knew me for who I was, not what I could provide. Ethan and I eventually parted ways. Kindly, honestly. No betrayal, just different paths. I dated, slowly, carefully. Turns out, when you're not emotionally and financially drained, you have room for connection. Kevin moved in with Rachel's parents. According to Christine, it was tense. Lots of arguments, lots of blame. I ran into Diane once at the grocery store. She saw me, looked away, left. I didn't need an apology. I'd already healed without it. 2 years after I stopped paying Kevin's mortgage, I bought my first house. Nothing extravagant. 3 bedrooms, a small yard, enough space to breathe. I threw a housewarming party. Vanessa came. Christine came. A few coworkers. Monica brought Sophia, with permission. People who clapped when they saw me happy. Vanessa raised her glass. To Aria, she said, who learned that the best investment isn't in other people's houses. It's in yourself, Christine finished. Sophia tugged my sleeve. I'm proud of you, Aunt Aria, she said. For what? For being brave enough to stop letting people use you. I smiled, heart full. Because she was right. I had stopped being a wallet. And I had finally started being a person.